The date is June 9th, 2019. I'm your host, Scott, here with Cookie.
Yo.
This is episode 121 of Fancy Ramen. And what do we talk about on the podcast today, Cookie?
Oh, the anniversary of Chernobyl? Oh, wait. No, my anniversary and Chernobyl. We also talked about how to price things well, with i.e. Google Stadia, and how to price things awfully, i.e. Apple.
And then we round out the video game podcast with some video game talk on the new gameplay presentation of Star Wars Fallen Order, and we wrap up with some talk about the upcoming Pokemon Sword and Shield and why Cookie and I once again are on rival sides.
Hint, because Scott chooses the doggo that has nostalgia for that he has nostalgia for in Dark Souls, and I choose the practical doggo.
Hey there. Well, let's get rolling right into the Fancy Ramen podcast, episode 121, which I guess we retroactively tack on now. So how
now
you
we know.
been?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty solid. I may have made a slight professional hobby mistake by going off the grid camping this whole weekend, and then getting back into town and going, oh shit, E3, right? Like the one time of the year I'm supposed to definitely be paying attention to what's going on the internet. I was busy hiking around in the woods. And so I did some catch-up video watching this morning, but I feel woefully underprepared compared to both you and Neil in this capacity. But I did watch the one thing that was definitely worth watching from EA's conference, which was Star Wars Fallen Order.
Oh, I was excited for the Apex Legends, but okay. Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah, I've never played it. That's a Fortnite, right? That's just a Fortnite.
Yeah, it's just a Fortnite.
Okay.
And that was my joke. Yeah. I don't know. We'll talk about that in about half a second. So besides being off the grid, what else have you been up to?
I finished Chernobyl, which is actually I did not think that it was only going to be a 5-episode miniseries, but miniseries does kind of suggest that it's smaller than maybe other series. So oops on that one. But it was a good show. It left Sierra and I with like tears welling in our eyes because we both understand and appreciate the difficulty of trying to do the right thing as a scientist and being pressured to not do that because it's just a part of the world. But that's it. I think that's part of the big thesis of Chernobyl is ultimately, I won't spoil the show, but it's an element that's accessible through just historical knowledge outside of watching the show whatsoever. Since the show is sort of a historical documentary, it's a dramatized version of it, but it's actually pretty good at doing that job of sort of telling the story and educating on what happened with the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. But just the reluctance of a nation to acknowledge its failings or shortcomings essentially resulted in part of the reason that the giant super country of the USSR finally collapsed. And it was very tragic and upsetting to see that, but there was a speech at the end by essentially the main character where he's talking about one of the flaws of being a scientist is ultimately trying to discover or trying to determine what the true nature of something is, and sometimes you're incentivized by folks who do not share that particular, drive to do so. And oftentimes you can honestly be pressured to avoid finding that truth if it's inconvenient or troublesome, which, as we know, like, generally the world kind of sucks. And so when you learn things, you're like, oh, this is another element as to why the world sucks. And everybody's like, shh, don't talk about that. That's not good.
I could take it.
Yeah. Of course, it's more eloquently expressed than I can do in this moment, but we finished it and I really liked it. And I think it's really worth watching. But also I feel like it is a show that triggers existential dread pretty well. So if people go into it and they start feeling a little uneasy, maybe they need to tread carefully.
Okay, that's good. I've got enough existential dread in my day-to-day.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Chernobyl, great show, trigger warning. It could really fuck you up if you're not in a good place. And radiation is spooky as shit, and knowing more about radiation does not make it any more like calming. If anything, it makes it even more scary and spooky. Also, they did way too good of a job with the special effects, because there are some moments where some people with high radiation doses turn into human boogers, as they should, and it is horrifying. It is Bloodborne-esque level of like weird, like almost uncanny valley gore, but it actually it's probably a very, very good visual representation of what that would actually look like.
Nice. That doesn't sound...
It's not drawing you in. You're not really excited with all of the pitches I've put in. Yeah. But instead of talking about how radiation tears things down, I want to know how your deck turned out. Building things up. Creating beautiful things that withstand the elements.
So yeah, the stairs are on now. And all that remains now is the railing. Everything feels super duper solid. And me and Lizzie actually celebrated our 6-year anniversary yesterday.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations.
Thank you.
6 years. What a milestone.
I know, right? We
Yeah.
actually did fancier things this year than we did last year.
Hey,
which
man,
was the actual milestone.
6 is much better than 5 because it's a higher number.
Exactly.
Just wait till you get to lucky number 7. And then when you skip from anniversary 12 to anniversary 14.
But yeah, so we ended up making, like, Lizzie decided she didn't want to go out for dinner, so we made a fancy chicken piccata with dates.
Ooh, yum.
Over some noodles, and we took out our bistro table, the very first table we ever bought, set it out on the deck, lit a nice bug repellent candle.
I was about ready to make a citronella candle joke. That's fantastic.
So we had a nice fancy dinner out on the new deck, and it was a beautiful fun time. We also got our toenails painted. I got flowers on my big toes.
Did you match the colors, or did you each have a unique?
She's got like a blue, and knowing me, I had to go with like a pink. And also your favorite color, pistachio.
Green. Well, yes, I love green. All greens are good, but pistachio is a particularly good green in my opinion. In my humble opinion. Green.
So my flower petals are pistachio green, and my toenails are hot pink.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's the non-gamer related stuff we've kind of been up to lately. Speaking of other non-gaming related stuff, I did have you watch a video on a little bit of homework for Apple's keynote. Did you watch anything else, or like look into anything else on that?
Just the absolute utter horror that transpired within like a 30-second window. For anyone who hasn't seen the Baldur's Gate trailer, a man, he morphs. He morphs, yeah. And I think it was when his toes started to like break and expand that she was at like peak I'm about to vomit stage, which was good. But then of course his head started to expand and then she overcame that peak and found a new summit of disgust. And yeah, honestly watching Sierra's horrified reactions to things is almost more entertaining than the things themselves for me.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that that's kind of the way you live your life.
Yeah, I've found my hobby, and that's horrifying my girlfriend.
So I will say I'm excited for the Baldur's Gate 3, not because I played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 back when it was out, but because I really enjoy the developers who are making it. So they're the guys who did Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2.
Okay. I'm excited for it in the sense that it's not them trying to release 1998 classic Baldur's Gate to me or Baldur's Gate 2.
Wait, but those are special editions.
But they're old as shit, man.
So, for those who don't know, Nintendo had a little thing where they said, we're doing all the D&D classics. Baldur's Gate 1, 2, Neverwinter Nights, and, oh gosh, just like 2 other games that I never even heard of are played. And those look all really old, and I think they look like they're still using a mouse and keyboard interface, but it'll be on the Switch.
Oh boy. On the Switch, known for its excellent mouse and keyboard setup. Oh god, I hate the mouse and keyboard port to like controllers trying to do mouse and keyboard because what they released Civilization, one of the civilizations for console, and when I saw that, even it was before, or it was I think maybe around the time I had just started PC gaming really, and it was really before I had a lot of exposure. But I looked at that and I said, ugh. And so far I'm still convinced that that is not a great way to not a great way to play a game with mouse and keyboard ported over to a controller setup, and vice versa. Trying to do controller stuff with mouse and keyboard is sometimes a little wacky. Or e.g. Dark Souls mouse and keyboard, or as one of my most masochistic friends played, trackpad and keyboard Dark Souls.
Ew, that, I'd rather pull out the good old fashioned DDR mat and our
yeah, and or bananas.
Dark Souls.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Baldur's Gate 3 topic was started because Project Stadia had their big announcement of pricing and kind of what everything looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might be sold on the Founders Edition.
Oh, wow. You are sold then.
Yeah, just I want to see, before I actually go all in with it, I do want to see kind of what the Stadia Pro gets you.
I think the Stadia Pro is just a subscription. It's essentially the subscription service with your like PS Plus or Xbox Live Gold free games that are added, and the best possible streaming results: 4K, 5.1 Dolby Digital. There's one last thing. I can't remember what the last
60
thing
frames.
is. 60 frames per second, yes.
So, and it depends on kind of what because they mentioned that you'd be able to buy just your normal games at discounts. So it depends on what that discount is, whether or not I'll be going Founders Edition or not. Because I do know, I think I want the controller.
You like that sleek like midnight blue? Oh no! If you do the Founders Edition, you get a navy blue controller.
Yeah,
sort of.
It looked black in all the screenshots and images I could see.
That's just because it's such a deep blue.
So deep. But yeah, so it's $9.99. They priced it at $9.99 per month, or you can buy the Founders Edition, which comes with a 4K Google Chromecast, the controller, and the midnight blue, and the 3 months and then you also get to share those 3 months with a
A
buddy.
buddy pass. Yeah. So if we break down that bundle, let's see, the 3 free months and the buddy pass are what, a $60 value if we count those as separate items. And then you have, how much would the 4K Chromecast cost normally?
The 4K Chromecast is I literally just bought one. No, I ended up not getting the 4K one. I think it's like $60.
So 60 and 60, and it's 130. Like, you're already assuming that you're on the mark with that cost.
Yep, $60, $59.99.
Yeah, that means that you're just $10 under before the controller. So you could consider the controller a free edition or the Chromecast a free edition, but either way, or because I think they valued the controller at like $69, $70 upon release if you wanted to buy one. So you're almost getting a free item out of that bundle, whether it's the controller, the Chromecast, or the buddy pass plus the 3 months of pro streaming, which is pretty good. But the most important thing probably is that you get to choose, you'll get to pick your gamer tag first and foremost. And so you can have
Player one.
You can have the coveted player 1, player 2, or your mom gamer tags without any like numbers tacked on the end. So that could be pretty enticing. I know that they have a limited time and limited quantities, of course, to drive up those pre-sale numbers. But the real question is like, what all is going to be available upon their like debut or release window? Because I think you also, if you want to play Stadia this year,
Or whenever it comes out.
I think you get access, like late October or November if you have that Founders Pack. But if you don't have the Founders set up, it may be 2020 where you actually get to access Stadia.
Stadia Base is available in 2020. The Stadia Pro available at launch with the Founders Edition, and I forget what the actual date for the Founders Edition was going to be available.
So the mobile gaming, not mobile, the multiplayer gaming is going to be kind of empty for a little while at the start, which makes me wonder how many people are going to be interested in this specifically for a lot of the multiplayer games versus the single player experience. And and if that's the case, like really honestly, waiting till the base comes out may not be a bad call, especially with them with Google saying that the Stadia is going to have adaptability to almost any controller. If you already have a console controller, you really just need that subscription price and some sort of Google streaming platform, right? Whether
Correct.
Whether it's a Chromecast or a Chromebook, or if you happen to have a Pixel, you could even play on that, apparently, the Pixel 3.
Yep. And so I will say the one bad part about the base is the fact that you are kind of buying into the ecosystem because you do have to buy the game under whatever their seller's platform is going to be.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the game's just going to be full price. So I would just say spend the extra $10 depending on what the discounts look like for the Pro.
That's
Get
what
a
I'm really
discount.
curious about.
Yeah.
What kind of discount range are you hoping for? Because I could see them pitching something like 10 to 15%, and no, like that just seems like that would not be enough. Like, I'd almost want to see like a 25% discount if it's really worth getting into a new platform.
So I'm thinking 15 to 20% on new games,
Mm-hmm.
and then bumping it up for the older titles. So like one thing they're doing is like Destiny 2. I think that should have like a heavy discount because besides getting it for free with the Founders Edition, why would you spend $60 on Destiny 2 when you can literally go out to GameStop if you've got a console, buy Destiny 2 Game of the Year edition for $20, get everything.
Yeah. And what is it? If you buy that Founders Pack, I believe you get Destiny 2, all of the content previously produced, as well as
The current season pass.
Yeah, a season pass for the upcoming year. Which I don't know what kind of value that is, because I don't and probably won't ever play Destiny, but
Neither will I. I kind of wish they were going back to, hey, get Assassin's Creed Odyssey again. Even though everyone who was in the Project Stadia beta, like myself, got it for free.
Yeah.
Just for being in the beta. But I'm excited. No, like that $9.99 a month really was like, okay, yes, that's a good price point. Because what were we expecting? Like $15, $20 a month?
I mean, I can't remember what we pitched, but that doesn't seem unreasonable to me, honestly. 15 sounds like a price point that would still be pretty enticing to quite a few people. 20's really pushing it. If you didn't have to buy games and 20 gave you some sort of like subscription to the
Xbox
most
Game Pass.
most AAA titles for that year and the previous year, I think people would be mostly comfortable with that. Especially considering the lack of console costs and whatnot. But you do run up the problem that this is a subscription service. So the longer that you use it, really, the more money you're sinking in. For someone like me who has only purchased PlayStation Plus from extreme bullying and pressure, I had already made my money back on entertainment versus the cost of like my PS4. And so with the subscription service, I'd really, really want to be using my, quote unquote, Google console, which is just the actual Stadia subscription and connection, quite regularly. Otherwise, I would not be getting my money's worth.
I was going to say at that point, you might be tempted to just get the base, because the base is honestly a really good thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Reason I think that.
But then I don't have my Blu-ray player with my PlayStation.
You don't have your Blu-ray player.
Which has convinced many people who would otherwise not own a PlayStation to get one, because they're like, oh, well, it is a free Blu-ray player too. Or at least back in the day. I think that's a selling point that has or that's a ship that's sailed. But at one point in time, that was definitely a driver.
Yeah. But I like the base because if you don't have a gaming PC nor a console, but you've got your just normal computer, you can still run these AAA games.
Mm-hmm.
Just spend the $60. There you go. Bob's your uncle.
Yep. Uncle Bobbert. What a guy. I want Stadia to succeed. I think this could be very interesting. I think it could increase the accessibility and, democratization of video gaming, make it much more accessible, much more affordable for certain people. And I really like that. I like increasing the accessibility and the diversity of gamers that can come into the fold. I'm still skeptical about it, so I'm gonna couch my thoughts until I get a little bit more feedback and data after the founders get their hands on it, and after the base and pro platforms or services are out for, say, 3 to 6 months.
So, did you believe this? The speed reports.
You're talking about the 10. You can still have essentially 1080p running at 10 megabytes per second for download speeds.
20 megabits.
20. Oh yeah, that's right. No, that's right. It was 720 megabits for
10.
For 10, and it was 1080 for 20.
And then 4K at 35.
Right, which if you're in an urban area, 35 isn't too far of a stretch.
No, it's not too far of a stretch,
access.
But do you believe 4K 60 frames per second at 5.1 surround at 35 down?
I think it's going to be really cool for people who don't have unlimited data plans when they reach a terabyte of data after a day of gaming.
Because I just don't... The artifacting, if you're getting 60 frames per second at 35 megabits down, that's just... No.
You used the beta though, and you didn't have any problems, right?
4K I did have in 60 frames per second, but as soon as there was any kind of shadow or darkness, the compression was just awful.
Okay. Yeah. So that is probably one of the things is it's like 4K if everything goes great with the little asterisk. And they'll start to They'll start to throttle some visual outputs. Maybe they even have it to the point where there's just certain type of graphics processing that by default they're going to try and decrease first before they hit other more easily noticeable details. Yeah. So they strike a balance between like, this is what we'll throttle before we throttle anti-aliasing or, like VSync and stuff like that.
Yeah. But it's like, so in my artifacting with 4K, I had about 50 to 60 megabits at that time download. So and they're giving it to you at 35.
Sounds pretty rough.
Yeah. It's like 1080p at 60 to 60 megabits was beautiful. Like everything worked just fine. But I don't see it at 4K at that slow of a speed.
Well, my my basic approach to anything that a company tells me is that it's a bald-faced lie, and I should like take some order of magnitude off of the bald-faced lie to find it more believable. I think if we add 15 to 20 megabytes per second to this 35, maybe I'll believe all the things that they have. But who knows?
I can see that.
I don't know. We'll see it. I guess only time will tell on this one. And because you're going to be the test case for it, I'll pretty much be listening very intently on what your feedback is on your experience.
So Google gave us good pricing. What'd you think of Apple's pricing?
Oh boy, this is great. I have a very complex relationship with Apple in the sense that I fucking hate Apple. It's tricky. So just a very small amount of background. I want to get some more info, or I really, really want to show this to my dad. And the background for the listeners who haven't picked up on the tidbits I've said about my dad is that he's a tech guy. He's been a tech guy his entire life. And he has actually predominantly worked with a lot of Apple hardware throughout his life. He's very, very familiar with Windows and PC operations for the most part because he has to do it for his work. But he's a pretty big Apple fanboy. Like he likes it a lot, and he's a big fan. And so I remember even a time where he was working exclusively with Windows systems for his job, and he was doing it through what did they call it? It was I think it was a bootstrapper program where he essentially emulated
Windows.
Yeah, to bootload Windows, and then he'd work on Windows on his Mac because he preferred that over just having a PC. And so we've you and I may have more similar opinions on this, but anyway, he's a really smart guy. Like at the end of the day, I trust him to do his due diligence on research and really kind of understand what he's working with on a hardware end. But I really want to pitch this to him and just be like, so what do you think about a $1,000 computer stand that is essentially separate from this
$5,000 to $6,000 monitor, depending on which monitor you buy, because there are two of them. One's $5,000, one's $6,000. The monitors look fucking beautiful and amazing, and what
they're
they
gorgeous.
do. They're 6K monitors. They're epic.
That second one has, what's that technology that they're talking about? It's a nano screen technology or something. I imagine what they've done is just cram so many damn pixels into a space that it's just indiscernible where one begins.
1 million to 1 contrast ratio.
Yeah. I mean, it would be unfair of me to try and say that Apple does not make some of the most beautiful displays that we've really ever seen in technology. They've done a phenomenal job on just making really gorgeous screens, and they have good cameras. I I hate Apple because of the $1,000 desk stand much more than I hate Apple for the like performance and capabilities of their hardware from year to year.
Yes, that is an accurate assumption because they make great stuff. I don't like how not customizable the stuff is. I like to tinker around with my settings and things.
Absolutely a reason why I also don't buy their products.
But all of their products are just way too overpriced. So it's like you're buying this $5,000, $6,000 monitor, and then you can either buy the VESA mount for $200. So that just says you've already got the arms that are going to be compatible with the VESA mounts.
Yes.
And that's $200 on top of your $6,000 display. Or you can buy a stand.
$1,000 stand.
And it's like, yeah, the stand's cool and all, but
can't you just build it into the computer? Why don't you guys 3D print some goddamn feet and just attach them to this beautiful monitor?
Yes, because that is saying that now this thing you're literally spending your life savings on the computer and the display, because the display is $6,000.
Right.
The computer. I don't even remember how much it is. But if the display is $6,000, you know they're upcharging for the computer, which looks beautiful. If you have a chance to watch all the things on that, I say do it.
Yeah.
It's an actual pro featured computer now with lots of beautiful features. You can actually customize the computer. Like they allow you to open it and put graphics cards and extra memory space in it. But it still doesn't help that you're like, okay, there's this one display that works with this computer to like really draw out all the power. And I got to spend all this money on all this. And then I'm adding a stand, a computer monitor stand, which usually comes standard. Have you ever seen a computer monitor without a stand?
No, I've never. Well, okay. Back when Apple made the like almost cathode ray tube looking monitors of the early 2000s that had the clear bodies, they didn't have a stand because the whole thing was inside the display screen and it sat like this weird little oblong egg. Yes. But
that it had feet.
Yeah, and that was roughly a little bit less than 20 years ago. I think that was what, 15 years ago that those were popular, or at least that I saw those when I was an elementary schooler / middle schooler.
Yeah.
So and end of the day, yes, they had feet, but it that's the closest thing I can get to. You bought the computer and it didn't have any sort of mount, but that's because the form factor was designed to eliminate that. They knew, the Apple of the past knew that the Apple of the future would turn evil and start charging for stands, so they needed to put out a product that demonstrated a stand was not necessary.
I'm actually kind of surprised no one's come out with a meme yet, because you know how Apple was first bold enough and are brave enough, that was the word they were using, to get rid of the headphone jack.
Yeah.
Now they're brave enough to get rid of the computer monitor stand.
They're incredibly courageous with all of the things that they're taking off of their devices so you can piecemeal buy them back on. No, they're very brave to not give a shit about the recent Federal Reserve Board report that says 4 in 10 Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. So, like kudos to them. That's very brave from an economic standpoint. But yeah, this is it's another reason. It actually goes back into my point about Google Stadia. Like, if it makes gaming and having fun and accessing like cool AAA titles and being a part of the gaming community easier and cheaper in the long run than purchasing the most recent console and games at release at like $60 a piece, I'm super for it. I'm very excited for it. Mostly because the other costs, like having internet, people are most likely already paying for that. So I don't want to consider that an additional cost to the Stadia. I want to consider it as something that most households try to have access to, regardless of if they're doing gaming or anything at all. Because access to the internet is, in some forms, the most like common access to entertainment that we have outside of visiting your local library or playing stick and hoop, which we all agree is probably still the last best method of the past. But stick and hoop jokes aside, just the edging out of the common consumer from products like this is fine if they're going to sell it to businesses, and this is going to be something that your graphical design studios are going to invest in. But this isn't something that Joe Schmo off the street is ever going to want to buy, I think, let alone be able to afford. And so it's fine to have outrage, but I just see themselves, or I see Apple trying to service a probably just as lucrative market, but a smaller market than the general public.
And I can see that as well. But but like all the biggest Apple fans and press were at this event. Did you get to see the live reaction?
Oh yeah, they were very upset, and Tim Apple shuffled back onto the stage to to essentially catch the hot press that was coming off from the audience. I do think that there's nothing more entertaining and impressive than when a audience at some sort of demo or release or premiere is like, you can see them actively becoming hostile to you.
There was an active gasp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the entire audience gasped and that one guy clapped.
And then the presenter ran off stage and he was like, and here's Tim Cook. He went backstage and probably stress vomited. So, and I do not blame him, because they asked him to do something that no other man should be asked to do. I don't know. It's so dumb. It would be cool if the stand did anything more than any other stand that we see.
Well, it does allow you to very easily adjust the angle and the pitch, and also turn it from a portrait to a landscape.
Oh, cool. I've actually seen
fly.
some really cheap stands do that for our laboratory Dell monitors that we have. So
I think those are now standard on all Dell monitors.
exactly. It's like you also can rotate that horizontal to vertical, and the screen auto adapts from its orientation, and you can adjust all of these angles. Maybe we're not at the point in which I can take a screen and 360 move it in any sort of space, or I can put that plane essentially in any orientation possible. But as far as computers go, I can have it facing me in my chair in almost any angle I want, and I'm not paying $1,000 for it.
Yeah. I would have honestly appreciated if they just upped the price by $500 and then just made the pro stand
part
included.
of it. Absolutely. I 100% agree. There is something to be said about just hiding individual component prices in a larger bundle price.
Yeah, it makes you feel a little bit better because you don't know actually what you're paying for things at
exactly.
that point.
Everybody gets pissed when they fly on an airplane and they see this is the luggage cost. This is like the federal and state tax for flying an airplane cost that you're paying. This is the seating cost. This is the free beverage and snack costs. Like, the more you break things down, the more upset people get because they feel like they're being nickeled and dimed. While if you just say, look, it's $500 to fly on my plane, that's it. People are normally going to be a lot more receptive to that because they're just like, okay, that's the price. That's the cost to do everything that happens. And they have a much harder time nitpicking, well, should each individual element or component really cost this much?
Yeah. Whereas Apple's like, nope, we're going to break down.
We're going to tell you what every single thing costs. Wait until our next conference when we tell you how much the wires to connect everything cost.
But yeah, that was the crazy crazy news, non-super gaming related.
In summary, Apple, we stan.
Sorry. There was one other piece of gaming goodness that happened. I guess we should have started this by saying it's E3 weekend.
I did say that. I said, "Oh shit, I haven't been doing my homework and catching
I
up
guess
on
you did
E3."
say that.
Yeah.
We've had. I would like to say I kind of went over what the listing was for everything.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have like a PlayStation Connect listed.
That's
I forget.
right.
PlayStation State of Play listed on like any of the schedules. Like Nintendo Direct literally has a thing on everyone's schedule. It's like, oh yeah, Nintendo Direct's gonna be Tuesday at this time.
Yes. And for anybody, well, we'll see when Neil gets this out, since he's currently being killed by toxic gas. This is true. I think he's actually evacuated the area, but his computer is currently in a toxic gas quarantine zone because that's the fresh hell we live in. EA was on Saturday, June 8th at, do we want to do Eastern times? Let's do Eastern times. Pacific can figure it out. They know what's up. We had EA at 12:15 yesterday on Saturday. Today at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to have Xbox presenting, and then Bethesda at 8:30 Eastern. Monday, we'll have the PC gaming show at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then Ubisoft at 4 p.m. Eastern, Square Enix at 9 p.m., and then our Nintendo Direct comes out at noon Eastern time on Tuesday. So while we're recording, the only thing we've had exposure to at this point is EA Play. Yeah, and Xbox will be coming up shortly, but currently has not happened yet. And that'll probably have some big stuff in it. Gears of War 5, Halo, Cyberpunk. We'll see what else comes out. And then Bethesda says they're not announcing anything new, but we will get to see Doom Eternal, which is a game I'm excited for. So I have a feeling most of the cool stuff we're going to be talking about E3-wise is going to come out on next episode, once we have all the information and we can kind of ruminate on it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Neil's going to be very excited for another Devolver Digital presentation this year.
God, I hope they do something extra Devolver Digitally and crazy and just make it like a super straight up stuffy press conference. That would be very Devolver Digital at this point.
Absolutely. The most
subverting
meta joke.
Expectations.
It would be great if they just somehow they roll out, a couple rolling chairs and they have a board meeting in the middle of the stage floor. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It could also just be another absurd spectacle like last year. We'll have blood and gore and just outright insanity. And that would be fine too.
Yeah. I'd be more excited for the
board meeting.
The board meeting though at this point.
I do agree. I think they could make that very funny.
But EA, they announced some fun things. But the most important thing that they did announce, oh yeah, we did do this joke earlier, was the
Fortnite Legends?
No, Star Wars.
Oh, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Did we make that joke? I don't think we've made a joke about it yet.
Did we not do that online?
I get very spicy on the Slack chat when it comes to games that I wish were going to be good, but I suspect will not. And so for our listeners, they're missing out because we haven't activated the Patreon access to my shit talk on the channel. But Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, a game that looks like it's sort of being born out of the Jedi Knight series that came out at least during our childhood, you and myself and even Neil. It's developed by Respawn, and they showed, it was like roughly 13 minutes of alpha gameplay footage. And did you get to watch any of it? Because I'd love to hear your opinion.
I saw the entire thing.
Okay.
Most of the entire thing. I was doing work and doing things and just basically watched the Apex and the Star Wars
That's all I did was the Star Wars because it was the game I was most interested in. As much as I whine and gripe about Star Wars and other, I guess, IPs that have been around since I've been alive, being overused, if they're done right, I could still be excited and interested. And when that trailer, or not trailer, but when that gameplay video first started, the John Williams-esque score that accompanies all Star Wars games and Star Wars themed things got me in the mood. I got excited to watch them play.
I can dig it. My initial thoughts when this was going on was, I don't know. I'm kind of meh on Star Wars. I'm excited that everything that they have to do from now on is supposed to be canon.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone who doesn't get into the extended canon of things, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to have like a good time. And I'd be excited to use that one character from Shameless as a knight, a Jedi now, and know that that one character from Shameless is official Star Wars canon.
as is the entire show of Shameless, a prequel to all of the Star Wars events.
But there were some nifty moments. I don't really care enough to be a Jedi anymore
Mm-hmm.
in the Star Wars universe, which is one reason I'm kind of mad on this. I was much more interested in being a smuggler or a bounty hunter.
They did really show off your favorite force powers, though, right? Force push and force pull, the most popular and cool Star Wars powers we've ever seen.
Hey, don't forget about force stop, which is the tension between force push and pull.
Yeah.
That was literally what they described that power as.
Oh,
there
really?
was that one. Yeah, it's literally called, like, every time he would stop the laser beams from going.
It's because he's
It was-
pushing and pulling it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And the game engine's like, I don't know how to process this.
So we'll just make it look like this.
Yeah.
But it was really cool when they, like, he did that. He then pulled the stormtrooper into one of the bullets and then used the stormtrooper to block the second bullet and then just dropped the stormtrooper. Like, you shot yourself.
The use of powers creatively, I think, is always rewarding. And it's actually one of the things I really dug about, what was it? It was Mass Effect 2 did a lot with that, with the biotic powers. It was like you could combine the biotic powers to do a lot of cool stuff that was otherwise less interesting when they were used individually, as opposed to when you combined, say, like the biotic power of lift and then slam or pull, where you'd essentially first make their body unaffected by gravity and then fling it in some
super
direction.
effective.
Yeah, make it super affected by whatever's happening. That could be really cool. I like that. The combat just looked kind of clunky, if you ask me. And there was a moment in which I was harboring hope that maybe we were going to see a Respawn Entertainment style third person combat game in the same realm of Sekiro, with like good movement and like simple but very tight combat controls that has, dodges and guards and parries. But instead of ninja tools, instead of having the shinobi tools of your lopped off arm, you have the force powers to utilize. But it looked kind of clunky and slow, and being able to kill stormtroopers in one hit is reasonable and cool. But if that's the whole thing, then you're just playing, like Anil has said, you're playing a limited unit Dynasty Warriors with your Star Wars character.
Which, isn't that what Star Wars Jedis are? Just...
Yeah, I mean,
limited.
if you watch, I think, especially if you watch the movies that came out during our childhood, episodes 1 through 3, it absolutely is Star Wars Dynasty Warriors. But I don't know. I got my hopes up when in the trailer they have stun baton bow staff guy, and he can't be affected by force powers. So they
really
repeatedly try to use force powers and keep getting punished for it, and then maybe after, I think our stun baton hero strikes with like 10 consecutive spinning strikes, and they do enough chip damage to take down 5% of your protagonist's health bar. When I was like, oh, in the games I like to play, you'd be dead before he even finishes the combo. I really lost a lot of hope there. And then what really was the final nail in the coffin is when our protagonist fights another one of those guys in a room with other soldiers. And so he just freezes the guy and deals with all of the other soldiers, and then goes back and like gets to whack, I think, half of his health bar off in a single strike because he's been frozen for roughly 10 seconds in the game. And I was like, oh, this seems broken.
Gonna cheese the shit out of that.
Yeah, and then the spider fight was just buggy. But I didn't like it. It looked bad. I really hate also watching any sort of enemy AI wait patiently while the other enemy you're engaging fights you. It's such a weird thing to see. Like the enemy, like, okay, it's gonna be my turn right after he kills that guy.
Well, isn't that how real street fights go anyway?
I don't know. I haven't been in enough street fights. I've really lost my edge on that.
Yeah, that's what I just assume if I get into a real fight with a bunch of dudes.
All the other guys are going to wait
versus
patiently.
Yeah. And not, I'm going to get hit in the back of the head. And everyone's just going to like start stomping me.
Yeah. That's not realistic at all. We at least know that even when an evil empire has spread across the galaxy, they understand the courtesy of waiting your turn.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. But we talked about Sword and Shield on the last podcast, right?
What about Sword and Shield?
The fact that we're excited to be adversaries and which Pokemon we're getting.
Nope. I think this is also a Slack chat exclusive.
Oh, so yeah, I guess we could talk about that before we wrap it up because we haven't been playing video games.
I know.
I've actually been playing SteamWorld.
SteamWorld Dig?
Nope, not Dig. I've been playing Heist and Adventure or Dungeon or Loot.
Oh, hell yeah. I've been playing the multiplayer mod for RimWorld, which I can talk about later because I'm actually going to be doing a lot more of that next Sunday with a good friend. But yeah, the Pokemon Sword and Shield legendaries were announced, which I guess we should have known were going to be Sword Doggo and Shield Doggo.
I wasn't expecting Sword Doggo and Shield Doggo, especially since Shield Doggo looks like who was the fiery lion?
Solio? Is it Solio? I stepped out.
Yeah.
I've got experience on Pokemon generations 1 through 3, and then like 30% of the Pokemon in Gen 5 and 5% of the Pokemon in Gen 6, and that's it. So
yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. But yeah, the Pokemon announced their two big things, which really seems like an unfair fight. If those two legendaries decided to fight each other, there's a dog with a sword in its mouth and a dog who has a lion's mane that is a shield.
Everybody knows that Great Swords Sif is going to win the fight.
No, he's not, because he has no defense. And quite literally, what does dog with shield for lion's mane have besides an exposed neck, kind of? Because most of that neck is shield. He's got his mouth. He's got his mouth to bite things with. So he's got attack and defense.
I see where you're coming from.
I don't know how many dogs fight with scratching. They fight by biting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Why are the dogs even fighting in the first place?
Because one's team sword and one's team shield.
Yeah, they chose the wrong Game Boy games at the start of their lives, and now they're rivals forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting that they have a pretty familiar locale for a UK style Pokemon. We haven't seen anything like that before, which is pretty cool. They've done, I think they did France more or less with Gen 6, and they did, or maybe that's just Europe in general. I just know that they had the Electric Eiffel Tower in 6. They've done multiple regions of Japan. They've done sort of island...
Hawaii.
Yeah, I'd say Hawaii, but I wasn't sure since I didn't play it. But
No, it's definitely Hawaii.
They've covered some very interesting
the
locales.
Aloha region.
I thought it was Alola, but
yeah.
yeah, change one letter. I guess that doesn't make it that obscure. But yeah, this should be really cool. I also think this is the first Pokemon game to hit consoles that is going to imitate the experience of the Game Boy games, or the handheld games, I should say. Because every other console Pokemon that I can think of has had a different gimmick or tweak to it. The Pokemon Colosseum games, Colosseum, I think it was DX with Dark Lugia, were distinctly
Stadium.
different. And Stadium and Stadium and Stadium 2 were distinctly all about the Pokemon battles, while these really seem to be taking the more, I think, diverse and realized world of the handheld games and porting them to a much higher processing power platform, so they can make a really pretty and really large world for Pokemon. And this is exciting. Also, it looks like they did the perfect blend of random encounters and visible encounters, which is cool. They're splitting the middle ground between people who like the classic style and people who appreciate the Let's Go Pikachu style of catching Pokemon.
Yeah. So I hope that it's just a toggle switch you get to choose and not just a random thing, because in the trailer they did the random battle, but it looked like you got to dash into the Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
It might have just been before it
Popped out of the
appeared.
grass. Yeah.
Which I don't know why you wouldn't just wait
To
for it
see
to
what
pop
it
out of
is.
the grass. Yeah.
I
point.
can't wait to see what happens when you're in a cave and you're just there's Zubats everywhere. There's so many Zubats that there's a maze made with all of the areas that Zubats aren't. And every time you step, the Zubats change the format of the maze, so you're still guaranteed a Zubat every 3 steps.
But yeah, so that looks exciting. I'm glad that they are bringing back the you can choose what you want to encounter. That just makes the Pokemon world feel a lot more lived in.
Yeah,
by the Pokemon.
it makes it seem a lot more realistic to not always being dark alley jumped by a Pokemon every 10 steps you make.
Because it's I understand being dark alley jumped by. Okay, you can't see Ratas in
tall grass,
grass because they're short, but I couldn't fucking see this Snorlax.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I can't remember. In the original Gold and Silver games, wasn't it, if you just walked through tall grass while the legendary dogs were out, Entei would just appear as a random battle? Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that great that now you'll at least be able to see Entei shuffling around in the grass? Or you'll be able to see your shiny Pokemon too, I assume. Which that's even cooler. If you see a shiny pop up and then you're trying to track it without bumping into other Pokemon.
Yeah, and that's quite literally how Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and them were.
Yeah.
You would see the shinies wandering around and they would be their color.
Yeah, so this is a game I'm really excited for. There is an equal amount of nostalgia and novelty that are really going to probably pull me into playing this. I had one last thought that I totally forgot, so I'm going to skip that. Yeah. Oh, not Woo. It's Wooloo. The sheep Pokemon is the cutest damn thing I've ever seen. It's taken the internet by storm, and it's if you're looking it up, it's WOOLOO. And
Wooloo.
I may just have
maybe just think Japanese.
a 6-man team of Wooloos because they are cute as shit.
Wooloo. It just made me want to say it in Japanese all the time. Because that's all it was. All it really was someone in Japan just said wool, but Japanese Wooloo.
Yeah,
and they were like, "Ooh, yes." I like the flower Pokemon with an afro.
That's right. And of course, there's the giant Pokemon battles that we're going to learn more about. I imagine in the upcoming Nintendo Direct.
That they'll talk a little bit more about the
why you're throwing human-sized Pokeballs at giant Pokemon.
I do like that aspect of, hey, it is a world where other Pokemon trainers are running around, I guess, because you could see the little things the beams of light for the, I forget what the battles are called, like enraged battles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you quite literally have to team up with a group of other, like 3 other Pokemon trainers
Mm-hmm.
in order to do this battle because they're that much more powerful. And they said only one of the trainers in that battle gets to use the... No, just gets to use the...
giant Pokemon
I get to make
option.
my Pokemon giant.
Mm-hmm.
But that just means that there's the possibility of, hey, if you're online, this is going to be Pokemon, the MMO version. Or it could just be, it goes into an online server type thing when you get near the red beam in the sky.
That's going to be pretty cool. I think that should be a lot of fun too. Pokemon has always benefited from multiplayer elements that are not not traditional of other like multiplayer games. Ever since they introduced, the link cable for trading and battling. I found out as I perused through lots of Wooloo fan art that Wooloo in French is called mouton, which is literally saying sheep. Which is phenomenal. Don't worry, I will link you all of this adorable sheep art.
Wooloo does look kind of awesome.
Yeah, but with that, I'm all video gamed out for now.
Pretty much. We may or may not get to hear. Oh my God! Did you see the made-to-order plushie for Wooloo?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it looks great. We may or may not get to hear Neil's hot take on Apple.
I hope to hear it. I want to know why Neil thinks it's such a good idea to sell this $1,000 stand. Oh, that is an adorable plushie. We might need Neil to put that up on the website for people to see.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's, I guess, get to the intro.
If you have comments, questions, concerns,
I guess the outro first.
I actually don't even remember how Neil does this, even though I hear it every week. If you want to contact Fancy Ramen, you can shoot us an email at at podcast@fancyramen.com.
There you go.
Yep.
Or don't hesitate to tell a friend how much you are in love with Wooloo and the Fancy Ramen podcast by spreading word of mouth and getting on that old Wooloo hype train.
And if you want some more Fancy Ramen action, we do have some active Twitch channels. You can watch Neil stream at twitch.com/fancyramentv/cookie skimilk for our main man Cuki, and John also streams at jfray all day, which is JAYFRAY all day. Cookie skimilk,
and I guess
CUKISKMILK. Fancy Ramen TV is the easiest to spell, so I'm going to leave that up to you guys to figure out. Have a great week, everybody.
Peace.